thank you everybody for coming. My name is Alan Ames, and this is my show, Alan Ames Thinks He's Funny, the senior center version. At 10 in the morning, this is PG-13, and that's it. So I am from Boston. My wife and I came down for Mother's Day weekend. Our son lives a couple of streets away. So I do come from that mystical land where we don't park our cars. We park our cars. And we don't park our cars just anywhere. We park our cars in Harvard Yard. That's what we say, right? And what about lobster? And not chowder. And we don't have water fountains, we have bubblers. And we don't have turn signals on the cars. We have blinkers, right? Blinkers. Now, I'm a Boston driver, and I think the only city that has worse drivers than us is New York City. So Boston drivers, there's a hand. You agree? Thank you. Thank you. So I don't even know why we bother with blinkers on our cars in the Boston area, because if you use a blinker, that's a sign of weakness. Right? I mean, the main reason we don't use our blinkers is that we don't want the enemy to know what we're doing. Right? So, but anyway, so you might ask, all right, so Alan Ames is from Boston. I perform primarily in the Boston Providence markets. What am I doing here? So as Karen explained, our son who's walking around, there he is. Just stand up for 1 second. You don't get to say anything. You don't have a speaking role, so sit down. So yeah, he arranged this. He said, hey, my dad does comedy up there. How about when my folks come down to visit? He puts on a show. So this hasn't been in the work for some time. So we came down for Mother's Day weekend. He came down on Friday, which was our 49th wedding anniversary. You guys, the last of you clapped right on cue. So we got to celebrate our anniversary here, Mother's Day yesterday, and 2 days from now, I get to celebrate my birthday. I'll be 72. So since I have all these happy events that I've been celebrating, my gift to the center is I'm doing the show for free. So, Kenny arranged this, and he is the answer to the question, what do you get when you marry your high school honey? You get that. He's actually the oldest of three. And I gotta tell you, he actually has been extremely supportive of my comedy since I started. About a year and a half ago, I guess. He's supported me all the way. He's gone with me to a bar in Providence. On at least one occasion when I was thinking maybe I don't want to do this anymore. And then my show kind of developed into an hour program for senior citizens. So extremely supportive of me. But beyond that, he's also a marathon runner. He goes around the country running marathons. And he's actually pretty good, so you could say he's very athletic. You could also say he's an athletic supporter. In fact, he's my family's biggest athletic supporter. So thanks for arranging this, Kenny. All right, so what about me? All right, so I did marry my high school honey. I am from Boston, Dorchester, actually. I grew up in Boston in the 50s. So when my family moved to a suburb south of Boston called Stoughton, as I was entering my junior year of high school. And that is where I met my boss. I mean, my wife. She's not here yet. So we graduated high school together in 70, UMass Amherst together in 74, married a year later, the first of three, a couple of years later. Professionally, my career was in food service management. I'm not going to dwell on that a lot, but I retired from that when I hit 60, And for the past dozen years, I've been working as a chauffeur in the mornings. Keep busy, make a few bucks and stuff like that. I'm an avid tennis player. I play year round. And I also go to the Y in my town to work out about 3 times a week. Mainly because it takes a lot of work to keep this physique in such great shape. So 2 sons and a daughter, 6 grandchildren. Molly is our regular freckle-faced 15-year-old. The rest are all boys younger than her. So as far as she's concerned, she's in charge. All right. So what I'm going to hope to accomplish in this next hour or so, and the show runs about an hour, or until I have to pee, whichever comes first. I'm going to weave my way through some different routines. I'm going to take you all back to Dorchester with me, 1960. We're going to go there. I'm going to poke a little bit of fun at the North Shore, South Shore thing in Boston. In Boston, if you live north of Boston, you live in the North Shore. If you live south of Boston, you live in the South Shore. There's that kind of competition going on. She's North Shore, so I already asked her not to be offended, because I'm North Shore. And then I'm gonna kind of have some fun with the whole thing about we're getting older. I'm gonna have some fun with that. There'll be a segment where I just tell some random jokes, and then hopefully I'll get to a segment where I talk about things that bother me. So that's a lot of material, and we'll see how time goes. But first, I almost forgot. The center asked me to make an announcement, and it goes like this. Okay. If anyone is here for the toenail cutting clinic, it's been postponed until tomorrow at 2, followed immediately by dinner at 2:30. That's a joke, don't come get tomorrow. Now I want to check and make sure everybody's comfortable. I don't know, it feels a bit short and chubby in here, or is it me? Seems to like that joke a little bit. So now that I do comedy, people ask me quite a bit, well, you know, tell me a joke, are you funny? Are you funny? And I go all the time, I say, well, I must be funny because every time I step out of the shower, my wife laughs. And one more joke before I start some actual routines here. A man lives in senior housing, and he's about to turn 80. His friends want to play a practical joke on him, so they hire a professional woman to visit him on the day of his 80th birthday. Oh, it's not that bad. So there's a knock on the door. Beautiful young woman walks in and she exclaims enthusiastically, she says, I am here to bring you super sex. I know, everybody says ooh when I say that. So the man thinks for a moment, and he says, thank you very much, young lady. I think I'll have the soup. All right, it's time. I'm inviting you to come back to the year 1960. Dorchester, part of Boston, officially part of Boston, very crowded. Triple deckers everywhere. And I grew up in a triple decker. Family first floor, family second floor, family third floor. So I'm 8 years old in 1960. When you're a little kid, you just kind of accept things as they come, but you might not understand them all. But one of the things I didn't understand is that we had a bowl of plastic fruit. Plastic fruit. Is that a thing back then? Was it just us? And we didn't even keep it out. It stayed in the pantry. Until company came. Company came, brought out the bowl of plastic fruit, and that was my job. And back then, we actually had company, because there were no cell phones back then. People would be driving around, they go, oh, let's go visit the Ameses. Doorbell would ring, my father would yell, Alan, go get the bowl of plastic fruit. So I'd go to the pantry, dust it off, back. And I remember once he said, as the people were coming up 3 flights of stairs, he goes, where's the plastic at? Back to the pantry, found it, brought it back. Yeah, it was behind the Ovaltine. That's all said. So people, they finally came and sat down. They said, oh, you put out the bowl of plastic fruit. Yes, we regard you very highly for you. For you, you get the bowl of plastic fruit. But something else about plastic back then. We had a couch. Plastic on the couch. You know, like a fitted sheet on bed? We had a fitted sheet of plastic that was on the couch. Never came off. Never came off. And, you know, I'm 8 years old, and every once in a while, if no one was looking at me, like, what would happen if I touched the fabric? Well, nothing, but, and I did that on occasion. I just touched the fabric. Never understood what was on, because when company came over, they still, no, it didn't come off. It stayed on all the time. Yeah. Even with company, they'd have to sit on the plastic on the couch, which isn't too uncomfortable until summertime, because we didn't have air conditioning back then, and they kind of slip around and all like that. Now, one more thing about those times is that times were different. I remember my mother was having a birthday, and my father was all excited because for her birthday he got her a vacuum cleaner. If I ever got my wife a vacuum cleaner or any household appliance for her birthday, the cause of death on the coroner's report would be strangulation by electrical cord. So she came up the flights of stairs, we had the vacuum cleaner all set up. Open the door, turn the vacuum cleaner on and go, happy birthday. And she'd like look at it. Now go vacuum the house. And what's for dinner? And that's just what it was like back then. Now, if my father were still alive, he'd be almost 104. And I am a lot like him. He was a jokester, he loved to tell stories. And I love to tell stories as much as I love to tell jokes. And when they retired to the city of Brockton in an apartment complex. And in the nice weather, he'd sit outside in the back, and the little kids from all the different apartments of all ethnicities would sit around, like in a campfire, but without a campfire. And my father would just tell stories and stories and stories. So I do get a lot of it from him. And I remember a lot of stuff that he did in his jokes. And he had a poem. He had a poem about hay toilets. Hay toilets. Because growing up in Boston, and I'm guessing any other cities, downtown at the major retail stores and public places, if you needed to use a stall, you had to put like a dime in or something, right? In fact, didn't we have shoes that had a little slot on it to put a coin in? Didn't we? What they were called what? Penny loafers. In case you had to make a phone call or use a toilet, right? So I would like to honor my father's memory and share this poem with you. And it goes like this. Here I sit, broken-hearted, paid a dime, and only farted. And he said that quite a bit, like randomly, even in the supermarket, he said. he also knew exactly what to say to me. If I did something stupid or just really messed up, he knew what to say to me to make me feel better. And I remember a little boy, like 8 years old, back in 1960. I'm carrying a plate of food to the kitchen table. It slid off, all of it, right onto the floor. So he looked at me, I looked at him, I froze. And he said, "Alan, can't believe you were the fastest sperm." See, I'm almost afraid to tell that joke because I don't know how it's going to go. There's a little town in the Boston area called Medfield, and I had a small group of seniors that I was entertaining, and when I told that joke, instead of a laugh, I got a gasp. Oh my God. One lady even reached for her inhaler. So we have 2 sons and a daughter. Kenny lives here. Our daughter lives in the town of Easton, about 15 minutes from us. Are you ready? Because I'm coming in your direction now. Okay. But our youngest son lives in a little town near the New Hampshire border called Groveland. I'd never heard of it before, up by Haverhill. Not that important, but the reason that he's up there is because he married a North Shore girl. So I just want to take a minute and explain that there's actually a friendly competition between people who live South Boston, South Shore people, and North Shore people. And if you even go on the internet and plug that in, you'll see a lot of funny stuff about the differences between people from South Shore and North Shore. So he married a girl from the North Shore, and she wasn't even from one of the good places up there, which would be places like Andover, Marblehead, and Swampscott, places like that. She was from one of the toughest cities on the North Shore, called Lynn. Ever heard of Lynn? Yeah. Lynn is a tough city. That's why there's a poem about Lynn. Do you know the poem about Lynn? Okay. Lynn, Lynn, city of sin, you never come out the way you went in. No, I did not make that up. That poem actually exists. So when Matt, our son, started going out with Jen, our daughter-in-law, they did end up getting married. The first time we met her, when they were dating, tall, 5'9" maybe, one blonde hair. Matt is maybe 5'4", 5'5". As you can tell, he did not produce any tall kids. And I noticed right away she loved jewelry. The rings, bracelets, necklaces, just general bling, ankle bracelets. And that ankle bracelet that she wore was so stunning, you could hardly even tell it was a GPS tracking device. Now, her parents still live in Lynn, and her brother does too sometimes when he's on parole. So we tried to warn him, Matt, if you guys get married, you have to understand you're going to be married to a North Shore person. Now, I'm not going to belabor this part because you're not really familiar with that area, but there are things on the internet that you would find that would say things like, oh, they have Cape Ann, we have Cape Cod. Right? They have Revere Beach, we have Fantastic Beach. They like their Kelly's roast beef up there, and we like our bar pizza. And she brought it up earlier, part of my routine is that I talk about the fact that there are these little green-headed flies on one of the beaches up there, called greenheads. And what do? They bite. I'm not making this up.
They have teeth.
Yeah. And you all know what flies are attracted to, right? Well, we don't have that problem on the South Shore. That is a North Shore thing. So, to her credit, our daughter-in-law, even though I do poke fun at her, she is very accomplished, and she knows that I tell these jokes, because the last thing I need is for my North Shore Lynn daughter-in-law to be mad at me. She's very accomplished. She is actually a sommelier. She is a wine expert. She really is, which makes perfect sense because she's a big wino. But she went to New York City to study and passed the test and everything. There's 5 levels of being a sommelier, and she's a level 2, and she's fine with that. You can pour a glass of any kind of wine. She'll sniff it and taste it and tell you, like, everything about it. And she does this thing on the side where she goes to, like, dinner parties. Does anybody still have dinner parties? And they invite her to bring a bunch of wine. And she does a wine tasting for a couple hours, so she makes all kinds of money. Now, I doubt anyone here will actually be able to get in touch with her, but when I do my show in Boston, I say to them, if anybody wants to get in touch with her to do this wine tasting thing in your house, I can put you in touch with her, but if you do invite her into your home, do me a favor and lock up all your prescriptions. So, we got older. We did. Things happen. Our bodies change, our health changes, maybe our outlook on life. And for me, one of the things that bothers me at the moment, although I'm in general kind of good health, I know that at some point I'm going to need a hearing aid. Not a big deal, but I just know that that's coming. I've had one hearing test and I'm like right at the bottom of the normal level. And I have that thing where, I can't hear dialogue if there's a lot of background noise going on at the same time, right? And my wife is always after me, go get another hearing test, you're probably ready for a hearing aid and all like that. So just an example of what my hearing is doing to me now. We were watching the news the other night, in the den, just kind of watching the news, playing with my phone. And I heard the news report say something about a woman being shot in her anus. And I said to my wife, Anita, I said, did you hear that? She got shot in her. How is that even possible? Did she tying her shoe or what? And my wife goes, you're an idiot. She got shot in the hyenas. So she made an appointment for me to have my hearing test. Now, I have been dyeing my hair for decades, up until about 2 years ago. Black, my normal color. So, I let it go, and now it's this gray, whatever. I don't care. It's still mine for as long as I have it. But one thing I noticed when my hair went gray is that now everybody calls me sir. And they all do this for me. Everyone's nice to me now. I really kind of like it. And speaking of gray hair, isn't it wonderful that the month of June, which is coming up, is for us seniors, isn't it? The month of June is the month to celebrate all of our accomplishments. You're all looking at me weird. It's Great Pride Month. Isn't it? It's Great Pride Month. In fact, last June, some friends and I, we went into Boston for the Great Pride Parade. So they're marching, and you wouldn't believe the colors and the bows and the hats with the plastic fruit on it. I never imagined that we had such support from the LGBT. And we're walking, and they're marching by us, going, Great Pride, and they say, come, join us. No, I didn't see that many seniors marching. There was some. But this is what I proposed. June is coming up. If you can arrange it, I'll come back. We'll get a bus. Wherever your great pride parade is, you can all get dressed up in all the colors from years past. And we'll march. You can arrange it. I'll be back. You know, we all think back to the times when we were younger, and I remember when I was a teenager, I used to keep a condom in my wallet. You know, when I was like 14 or 15, to be, cool like the other guys, like anything was gonna happen, right? Well, there's no condoms in my wallet anymore. But in the same place that I kept my condoms, I now have lactate pills. Just in case. I had a small tattoo put on when I was a teenager. Small tattoo of a battleship on my chest. And you've all seen the cartoons about us seniors that had tattoos put on decades ago. And, they've drooped or sagged or become distorted, so, yeah, so my battleship is kind of, headed towards the bottom of the ocean, so to speak. But I take it a step further, because I have lost some weight over the last year or so. I've become a little bit more compact, and I've noticed that the ship is slowly starting to come back up again. In fact, my goal is to get it back to the surface. So my plan is watch what I eat, exercise, and hopefully I'll get it back to the surface. And if people say to me, "Hey Alan, you look great. Have you been dieting?" I would say, well, I don't know if it's so much of a diet, it's kind of a salvage operation, actually. So one more thing about getting older. Nope, two more things. I'm going to do this one first. Okay, so I had a colonoscopy recently. Fun things that we do. I've had 3 of them so far. Now the first 2 were when I had to drink that yucky, citrusy, yucky stuff. So I really was putting off on my 3rd one, and it's not like I had a lot of problems. I had like 1 bottle each time, so I was on like a 5-year plan. But I come to find out that there are now alternatives to that citrusy, yucky stuff now, and I was really glad. Because my wife had a colonoscopy about a year earlier, and her prep method was Miralax mixed with Gatorade, which was, and that's what I did. It was real easy to drink. Just keep in mind that the end result is just that you get all cleaned up for the procedure, right? My son-in-law had his first one, and he had a series of actual pills that he took, and he drank a lot of water. Same effect. So I know what I'm going to do the next time. For my prep, the next time I have a colonoscopy, I'm just going to eat a bunch of ice cream the night before. No lactate pills. That'll have the same effect. In fact, I can just hear the gastroenterologist now afterwards go, "Alan, you did a really good job getting all cleaned up. Which prep method did you do?" Well, I used the Ben & Jerry's method. Now, most people have some apprehension, and they worry, and rightfully so, about going for any kind of a procedure, even a colonoscopy, because you worry about anesthesia, the results, what might happen, and so not me. I couldn't wait for my colonoscopy because it was a great opportunity for me to try out new material. And I had the greatest joke that I was waiting to tell right before they put me under, that I would tell my doctor, my gastroenterologist, Dr. Navin Kumar. Very nice man. So I'm on the table, in position, and I said to the person that does the anesthesia, let me know right before, you inject me, and I, go into lull him because I have a question for Dr. Kumar. He says, okay. So a few minutes later, he says, okay, now's the time. So he's like right behind me, and everyone, there's like 5 or 6 people all around, all the medical professionals, and I said to him, I was dying to tell this joke. So I said to him, hey, Dr. Kumar, I have a question. He goes, what? I said, if I hear someone say, what an asshole, would that be an insult or a compliment? So I heard them laugh, and the next thing I remember, I'm in the recovery. But I know for certain that I got to tell that joke. And I really did that. Because I am a troublemaker, and I will say wise things, whether I'm in a business setting, a doctor's office, a wedding. I'll make people laugh when they're not supposed to. I get in a lot of trouble. Anyway, I have one more thing I want to talk about getting older. And that is my visits and my relationship with the staff where I go for my dermatologist. So, I've been going once a year for quite some time. And this medical practice in Boston, Chestnut Hill actually, is large. There must be 3 or 4 doctors, a dozen or more staff. When I initially go there, and the name of my dermatologist, by the way, is Dr. Sally Tan. It really is. I have a dermatologist whose last name is Tan, because she's Asian, spelled T-A-N. And she's even told me that people get that joke when, her name is Dr. Tan. So when I first started going there, it's just her and a scribe. You've had a scribe come in where they dictate things while they're examining you, while you're in your Johnny. And, well, for men, I was in my underwear. I don't know how it's for women, but we have a female doctor, we keep our underwear on. Except the first time, because I didn't know how to follow instructions, and that's how I ended up with an asterisk on my medical chart. And I've peeked at my medical record, and the asterisk says, make sure Mr. Ames is wearing his underwear. So originally it's just the dermatologist, Dr. Sally Tan, and the scribe. And I'm telling jokes, as I do all the time. I'll give a couple of quick examples. My wife had some kind of a rash, and she was prescribed something, and we went back to her primary care. We're in her office, and the doctor comes in. My wife and I are sitting there, and the doctor says, so how's the itch? I said, I'm fine, thanks for asking. This is what I do. Now in that instance, my wife laughed, and the doctor laughed. Next instance, my wife had an MRI of her brain. Everything's fine. And we were back for a return visit, and the neurologist had the images of my wife's brain up on the computer screen. So my wife's looking at it, and the doctor, he calls me, he says, Alan, do you want to come look at the images of your wife's brain? So I said, sure, I've seen everything else. Okay, so wife, not happy, doctor, hilarious. He even said, I've been working a long, hard day. I really enjoyed that. Last example, in a restaurant in Easton called Tommy Doyle's. Quite a bit. This was pre-COVID. There were 4 of us, friends, and came with us to dinner. I'll get back to the dermatology story, don't worry. We finished with the meal, and our waitress happened to be a very, attractive woman. She had a dessert tray. She came over with a dessert tray. She said, would you like to see the goodies? You already know what I said. I said, sure, and after that, we'll check out the desserts on the tray. Wife not happy, friends not happy, waitress not happy. So sometimes I can get away with this stuff and sometimes I can't. Oh, so anyway, let's go back to my dermatologist. So I tell jokes there like I do everywhere. But something about that office, word spread, because every time I went, it wasn't just my doctor and a scribe. There was now at least one or two more nurses in there. Every time I came, because they know that I tell jokes, right? So about a year ago, I had a little red dot on my shoulder. This is real. And she biopsied it, and it was basal cell skin cancer. Very common, not a big deal, so, she cut it up. And you have to go like every 6 months or 2 years when you have when you have a skin cancer thing. So I'm back, and, she's checking me out, and there's got to be like 8 or 9 people in the room. Because they know that I'm going to do jokes. They think they're going to have a comedy show while I'm in a Johnny and, wearing my underwear. So she says to me, she's examining me, and she says, that healed really well. And I made a joke that I didn't think was funny at all. I said, yeah, that's my superpower. The room went crazy. And they thought it was like the funniest thing, is they're at a comedy show now, right? And then she says, your skin is really pretty good for a 71-year-old. Once again, so I said, well, must be because of all the preservatives in the beer I've been drinking all day. Big laughs, big laughs, big laughs. So, I'm telling the jokes, it's a short and chubby, and it's just me, jokes I've already told you, jokes I haven't told you yet. In the room, there's still people coming in this little exam room, and I'm looking around and I'm counting. We now have 2 scribes, 5 or 6 nurses, a woman in the back with a cleaning cart, and another doctor came in with a thing around his head, with a little light on it. So there's all these people in there, and I'm thinking to myself, great, first time I have a spotlight on me, it's coming from this guy's forehead. So I'm doing my jokes and all like that, and she says, Dr. Tien says, I'm sorry, there's so many people in the room, I can get them out of here if you want. I said, no, this is great practice for me for the next time I have to perform in a Johnny. But then, piece de resistance. So now she asks me, would you like me to, you know where this is going, would you like me to look at anything under your underpants? Because she's a dermatologist. The room became dead silent. Well, I couldn't resist. So I said, I wish. And then I immediately followed that up with, shouldn't we at least have dinner first? Shouldn't we at least have dinner first before she looks under my underpants? I usually don't explain my jokes, but... So, as it turns out, the best room I ever played in is exam room number 5 at Chestnut Hill Dermatology. Thanks, but you're not getting out of here that quickly. I took harmonica lessons recently. I didn't bring this all the way down from Boston not to play something anyway. We don't have much time, so just a small excerpt here. Right? Wow. So I am a proud graduate of the Betty Crocker School of Music. Not only can I kind of play the harmonica, can make a mean bunt cake. Is that bun or bun? Is it spelled DT or is it 7D? 7D. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so I have been told that I'm as much a humorist as I am a comedian. And I had to look it up, there is a distinction. So a humorist is somebody who tells entertaining stories that may or may not have a punchline, or may not even be funny, but they might be simply entertaining. If you look up the word humorist, you're going to see a lot of stuff about, I can read lips. Yes, you're right, Mark Twain. Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens was a famous humorist. So I kind of walk a fine line between the two because a lot of the jokes that I tell are embedded in the story and in a routine of what I do. But I can tell jokes, which is what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to tell just several random jokes that aren't really connected to each other. So these are some of my favorites. Two lifelong drinking buddies from South Boston. Long-time drinking buddies. One is in the hospital, kind of serious. He says to his friend, Johnny, if I die, do me a favor and pour a bottle of your favorite Irish whiskey over me grave. So his friend says, sure, Tony, I'll do that. But would you mind if I strained it through your kidneys first? Two lifelong buddies, but this time it's all about baseball. Played baseball, go to all the Red Sox games, go to spring training. Red Sox all play. One of them does pass. So the other guy is in bed one night, about a week later, and he sees a vision of his friend. He goes, Mike, is that you? Yeah, it's me. You're in heaven, right? Of course I'm in heaven. He says, oh, well, tell me this. Is there baseball in heaven? Well, good news and bad news. All right, well, what's the good news? The good news is, yes, there is baseball in heaven. What's the bad news? Bad news is, you're pitching tomorrow. You guys okay with that joke? Okay. No, because my kids asked me recently, Dad, when the time comes, and we hope it's a long time from now, do you want to be buried or cremated? So I said, well, surprise me. And one more note, back to the jokes that I actually did plan on telling. A little girl is on a farm, lives on a farm with her family, and her grandmother's on the front porch rocking away and reading the Bible. So she says, Grandma, why are you out here just reading the Bible, rocking? And grandmother goes, well, dear, I'm cramming for my finals. I should have stopped. Okay, there's a U.S. senator that we used to have in Massachusetts. You probably heard of him because he did run for president. His name is John Kerry. I don't do political humor. But John Kerry married Teresa Hines, right, from the ketchup years and all like that. When they were dating, he actually had the nerve to ask her, how many positions do you know? So she said, we have 57 varieties. I don't do any body shaming jokes, but I do one short joke. And I think I have the right to do a short joke because at 5'2", I've had so many short jokes hurled at me over the years, and I'm going to tell one. And this goes back to the old TV show Fantasy Island with Ricardo Montalban and the late French actor Hervé Belchez, who was barely 4 feet tall. Now, in real life, married a woman of average height. She was like 5'5", something like that. But I understand that someone put him up to it. My son is embarrassed back there. This is a lot of fun. So, Kenny lives down here. He's been here since his George Washington days. And my wife Anita and I, we've come down here many times. We've seen all the Smithsonians. But we learned not too long ago that there's a spy museum down here now. So we went to go check it out one day. Could never find it. So Kenny and his brother, his younger brother Matt, are very competitive. And one day, we're all together and they're arguing. Well, not arguing, they're just boasting. Oh, I make this much, my bonus is this, and my potential is that. And I had to get involved, so I said, hey, you know, I make six figures too. Unfortunately, two of them are after the decimal point. And then they're doing this competition thing about how smart they are because, you know, they both have master's degrees and graduated cum laude, summa cum laude, magna this, and all that kind of stuff. So I had to break that up too. So I said, you know, I graduated with honors also. They go, you did? What honors did you graduate with? UMass Amherst, class of 74. I said, I graduated someone couldn't get me. We had to get numbers for our mailbox recently. So I went to the hardware store, and we're in the section where they have all the numbers. And I had to call the manager over. I needed the number 10. So I called the manager over and he said, what's wrong? I said, well, we need the number 10, but the highest number you have there is 9. So we got the 9. Close enough. Now, sometimes my neighbor gets their pizza, sometimes they don't. Oh, do you remember the A&P supermarket chain from years ago? They're not around anymore. They had the opportunity to merge with Stop and Shop, which would have been awesome because then they would have been called Stop and Peep. Two little girls, they're sisters. One's 6, one's 4. They're in the bathroom looking at the scale that's on the ground. The older sister says to the younger sister, don't ever step on that. Every time mommy steps on it, it makes her cry. So time is flying by here. I'm going to do a very short segment from things that bother me, and then I'll go into my standard opening and thank everybody for coming. So there's a lot of things that bother me. The one that I want to talk about the most concerns those of you that still have a landline. I'm guessing some of you still have a landline? I see a lot of people shaking hands, some people shaking hands no. If you have a landline, keep it. Keep it, because for those of us that just have cell phones, if you're talking on the phone and you get really angry with someone and you just have cell phones, you can't slam the phone down. Right? And this is what this looks like. Right? If you have a landline, this is an example of what it would look like. What do you mean? My pot won't be ready for a couple of months. You promised it to me before. Well, let me tell you what I think about that. Bang. Bang. Yeah, slam. Whether it be the phone on the wall or on the counter, you probably hurt your hand because those things are pretty rugged. But today, if you just have a cell phone, this is what that looks like now. I need to do this a lot. What do you mean part won't be ready. You promised it to me before. This is what I think about that. It just doesn't work. There's actually a sign, a highway sign on Interstate 95 coming up from New York into Connecticut. It's about 30 miles up, I think. And this is something that really bothers me. The sign, this is what that sign actually says. It says, correctional facility, no stopping. Is this a problem? Are people flying up Interstate 95 at 65 miles an hour, pulling over to pick up hitchhikers in orange uniforms? Is this happening so much that they have to put up a sign? Well, I think instead of spending money on the sign, you just fix the hole in the fence. I mean, imagine there's two inmates and they're planning their escape. Yeah, we're gonna, sneak out, we're gonna run through the trees, the tree lines of the highway, and we're gonna, and the other guy goes, can't do that anymore, there's a sign. All right, one more, and I need to go into my standard closing here. Are there any Big Y supermarkets down here? Okay, anyway, Big Y is the supermarket chain we have in the Boston area. Huh? So the Big Y has this really good rotisserie chicken for like $7. So I stopped at the Big Y one day just to go in and get that one afternoon, and the parking lot was really, really busy. So I'm driving around and I finally find a spot, and I go to pull into that one spot and there's a sign. So I stopped to read what the sign said. This is exactly what the sign at the Big Y supermarket says in the parking lot. It says, parking for customers with children. So I pulled in. I get out of the car and this woman yells at me. She goes, where are your children? I go, well, one's down in DC, another one's up in Groveland, another one's in Easton. How about yourself? So I guess by the look on her face, they need to make the sign a little bit more clear. So I want to leave you with one piece of advice. Yes, you should be scared. And one final joke. And it's the joke that my wife hates. No, she's been to... Is she hiding?
Yeah, she's at the door.
No kidding. Okay. Well, I'm already into this, so I have to tell that joke. All right, so if someone were to come up to you and ask you for a piece of advice with all the experience that you've had, you could probably come up with something. So from me to you, this is one piece of advice I have for everybody, and I hope it comes in handy one day. Never, ever, ever go through a car wash when you have to pee. Never ends well. And my final joke. So I used to drive a taxi when I came home from college for those summers and winter breaks. And it was just in our local town of Stoughton, called Billy's Cab. There's just two cabs. And we're going back to like the year 1970, 71, something like that. A couple of times a week, we would have to pick a man up early in the morning, like around 10, I believe. And we had to pick him up at the Lithuanian Club in downtown Stoughton, small little town, remember. And he was an alcoholic. At 10 in the morning, he was already plastered for, or another word, he was just really drunk. That's all we could say, really. Now, we weren't even supposed to talk to him. Just pick him up and bring him home, a couple miles away. And I did that quite a bit. But one time I picked him up and I made a mistake, because I said to him, all right, I'm gonna take you home now. And he laid into me because he said, well, you know, in his drunken voice, he goes, you always take me home. What are you, stupid? Now he's laying into me, you know, you're short, fat, this, that, and you know, I'm letting it go because he was really intoxicated and he was one of our regulars, but he crossed the line because then he started insulting my private parts. He did. So at that point, I pulled over, still about a mile away from where he lived. I said, get out. He said, I'm not going to pay. I don't care, just get out. And I told the owners, and they were okay with that. But that was the last time I ever showed my junk to a passenger. That guy ruined it for everybody else. Thank you, Montgomery County people. Thank you, Karen.